All right, guys. So I just wanted to create a little video on how I actually make these spreadsheets. A lot of it has just been the tools, but not really how to get to the spot where these tables are. So this one is going to be teaching you how I first get the rosters to auto-populate based off of whatever team it is. It's kind of like indexing, but I use VLookup. I just find it more simple that way. It essentially is indexing with the way that you're referring back to previous cells. But let's just go ahead and get into it. So basically what the goal is to have whatever team that you're changing it to. So let's say Detroit. It auto-populates their entire roster, and then from that roster, we're getting all the statistics just using a simple VLookup. So I'm going to go ahead and show you from scratch how I make this happen. So we're going to go back to get some raw data. So just on Pro Football Focus, and I'm just going to export their CSV file for the projections for 2018. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this into another document right over here, and we're going to go to B1. I'll show you why in a second. All right, so once everything's in here, we're going to go ahead and create this unique, what I call ID for the player. And this is going to be based off whatever team, or I mean, you don't have to use this for fantasy football. This can be relevant for really whatever you're using it for. Whatever you're looking up for, in my example, I'm looking up the team that they play for. That's going to be the cell that you're referring to first. So we're going to go ahead and do the equation. We're going to say equal sign, and we're going to come over to C2, and then we're going to do an and sign, and then we're going to do quotes, a colon, another quote, and another and sign. What that's basically doing is linking C2 with a colon to something else. And what that something else is going to be is COUNTIF function, and the COUNTIF function is there as a way to identify what number of that team this is. So for example, Le'Veon Bell is the first Pittsburgh player, so he's going to be P1. Then as you can see down beneath, Antonio Brown is the next Pittsburgh player on this list, so he would be Pit2 with a colon in between. So the way we do that is with the COUNTIF function, so COUNTIF, and then we're going to do C2, so then we're going to click C2 again, through C2, comma, then C2. So we're counting the C2 if from this range there is that team name. It'll get easier to understand. I know it's kind of confusing at first. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put lock in that initial C2. You don't necessarily have to do that. It just makes it a little bit cleaner there. And then we're going to close this bracket. And then we're going to hit enter. And as you can see, it created Pit:1. Le'Veon Bell is the first Pittsburgh team on this list. So I'm just going to double click in the corner, and it's going to auto-populate all the way down. As you can see, like I mentioned earlier, Antonio Brown is Pit2 because he is the second Pittsburgh player. And you can see up in the function now, it's C2 to C13. So that's the reason I didn't lock this second C in there, because I want that second C to continue to drop all the way down throughout the entire table. So now that we have all the players listed with their unique identifier, now we can refer back to that unique identifier in order to pull them into a different table. So we'll go ahead and open up another tab down here. We'll just call this tab data import. Oops. Then we'll call this tab, I don't know, the projections, because that's what it's going to be eventually. All right. So now what we're going to do is do a table to refer back to the team and the player. So first what we're going to do is do the team. And then this is going to be where we're going to enter in Pittsburgh, Washington, Denver, etc., whatever team you're actually looking up. And then we're going to do, let's get it a little bit bigger. We'll do player, God, I can't type right now, player name. And then we'll do ID number. So what I'm going to do, most of these rosters in fantasy typically have, I don't know, like 15 or so relevant players. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to pull this down to 15. My computer is not wanting to cooperate. What the hell is going on? All right, let's use this. There we go. And so what we're going to do, what I like to do is do a data validation. Let's see if I can get a list of all the teams from my old stat. Do I have one? Oh, I know. I'm just copying and pasting a list of the team names just to save me some time so I don't have to type that all in. And I'm going to create a third tab over here. I usually just call this data validation because this is where I just put all the random crap that I refer to as a validation source. I'll explain that too in a second. All right, so what I'm going to do for this projections tab, so a lot of you have been asking how I get that drop down on Excel. So this is how you do it. So you go to the cell that you want the drop down, and you're going to go to data, and then you're going to go to data validation. So there's data validation right here, and then you can change allow, and you can change this to a list, and then it's going to let you to refer to a certain area where that list is. So now we're going to come back to this data validation tab, and then we're going to highlight all of the team names, and then just hit enter, and then hit OK. And then we can see right here, now all the names are listed. Whatever you click, it's going to just pop up there. And you can always clear it if you don't want anything there, and it doesn't actually get rid of that drop down. That drop down will always be there as long as you're clicked in there. Okay, so now we're going to do the actual referring to this team name and pulling in based off that. So what we can do is, since we have this ID number, we're just going to do a simple VLookup function. Oh, but the most important thing that we did not yet do is we're going to name this area, okay? So since I'm going to be pulling statistics later, but I'm going to be pulling it on a VLookup based on their name, but this one is based on the identifier. This is important. So I'm only going to list these two, and I'm going to name this as, I like to call it index. I know it's not actually indexing, but that's just easier for me to remember. And then I'm going to label this whole thing without the index. That's important as well. It needs to be the names in the first column for you. And I'm going to label this as Proj 18. Easy to remember for me too. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the team name. And then right here, I'm going to do =, VLookup. And now what I'm looking up is that unique identifier. So what I have to do is click the cell where the team name is, but I have to lock this in. That's important to lock that in. So we're going to do the function F4, lock it in, and then we're going to do that and sign again. Oops, quotations before the colon, and sign. And then we're going to do, what is this, C4? C4. And you don't want that locked in because you want it to go down to whatever that ID number is. So you don't want it locked in one spot. You want it to be able to go all the way down. So then we're going to do comma, because that's our first value. So it's C2, which is the team name mixed with the identifier. So that's the name we're looking up, and that's going to the ID. So now we're doing the table array, so that's where it's actually pulling it. And like I told you guys, I named that index. So you can just type in index. That's all you have to type in, do a comma. And then we're going to go to the column, and it's only 2 columns wide. The second column has the name. So we're going to go ahead and hit 2. And then range lookup is just 0. You don't really necessarily need that unless you're ranking things. But you're just going to go ahead and put a 0. And then you're going to close it. Let's see here. What did I do wrong? I was sitting here so blown by how I couldn't figure this out, and it's all because of stupid Pro Football Focus decides to put Arizona as ARZ. All right, so that was not a good team to start with. So let's just go to a team that's not ARZ. So make sure that the team name that you're putting in, there we go. All right, and then I also like to add in an if error. This is just in case, so you don't get the NA sign, because it just bothers me because I'm an OCD freak. And then you can just do quotes with a space in between, and that will just give you a blank. And then we're going to pull this all the way down. So yeah, sorry about that. So what I would do to fix this is I would come in, I could just highlight this whole row, go to a custom search, advanced search, and I'll type in find what, and we're going to do ARZ, and we're going to go with replace to ARI, replace all. And then it says 15 replacements made. All right, cool. So now when we come back here, we can flip back to Arizona. And there you go. All the team names are there. So yeah, this is the reason that didn't work is because this name that it was referring to wasn't the exact same, which is important to be the exact same. I think this might actually be a common issue. Yeah, because like Kansas City, I believe in the other document is KCC, Tampa Bay is TBB. So just make sure wherever you're doing the data validation from, that was stupid of me to not do it from the same source, but just make sure that these names are perfectly matching wherever you're actually getting the data imported from. Otherwise, you'll run into that same issue. But as you can see, the team names where we don't have to worry about that, like Seattle should work, perfect. Washington should work, perfect. And then so from there, now we have the names all listed in here, and these are all the rosters that are auto-populated based off this. Then we can actually really get down into the projections and really making everything look pretty. And that I'm going to cover in the next video.